Hello there! So today I am here with special guest David Levithan, author of everything.
Some books.
A few books.
Not everything, every day. I've written everything.
Yes, everything.
Everything.
And every day,
Everything.
included in there somewhere. Most recently, we have Hold Me Closer, which is the Tiny Cooper story from Will Grayson. So how would you describe this? I mean, it's a musical.
It is
in
a
book form.
Yes, it's a musical in novel form or a novel in musical form. You can decide which. But it is a companion to Will Grayson, the book that I wrote with John Green, which was stolen just wholesale by the character of Tiny Cooper. In Will Grayson, we see a few numbers from Tiny Cooper's musical about his own life, but this book is the entirety of that musical.
Do you have like the actual music in your head? Have you written it? Is it composed and ready to go on stage?
No, I mean, only if you could translate my brain directly to stage, which would be a really ugly mess.
You have that technology.
Yes, I'm sure. If I could sing every song, it would be a very horrible experience for anyone who listened, and when proofreading the book I did actually have to sing it aloud to make sure it worked, but hopefully people like you guys, we deliberately did not put music out there so people would write their own music to it and sort of crowdsource it and people could have their own versions.
Yeah,
eventually there will be an official version, which may or may not resemble what's in my head.
So like you could do the audiobook and sing for all of
bad acapella
versions.
But there is not an audiobook because we have no music. We decided that it would be very strange to have whoever was doing the audiobook recite the lyrics, like, what is second base for a gay man? Like, it just wouldn't, it could be good comedy, almost like one of William Shatner's music albums, but probably not satisfying as an audiobook.
So you write a lot with other authors. What is that experience like? Is it different with everyone you write with, and how do you determine how your voices go together? Like, are you sending chapters back and forth overseas?
I mean, it's different with every writer. With Rachel Cohn, who I would not be collaborating with people who weren't for Rachel. She was the one who had the idea to write a book together because she felt that she could not write a he said, she said novel herself, that she needed a he to write it with. And I was like, I'm a he, I can do it. I probably didn't use that voice because that wouldn't have been very convincing.
I feel like you did.
Yeah, maybe I probably did. She said, okay, I want to write this book, alternating chapters, he said, she said. It'll be about two kids named Nick and Nora who are teenagers from New Jersey, and they're in New York for one night. Go write the first chapter. And I was like, okay. And for 3 weeks I was like, what? Nick and Nora? Who are Nick and Nora? And then on the bus ride home one night I was like, oh, Nick is the straight bassist in a queercore band, which is a very strange thing to think, but that's how my mind works. And I just sat down and I wrote the first chapter. Did not want to define Nora because that was Rachel's character, so Nora only shows up in like the last paragraph of the first chapter. And emailed it to Rachel. Didn't say a word. I was like, here's chapter 1. And probably like 24 hours later, if not less, there was chapter 2 in my inbox. And we had never discussed the fact that we would never discuss it, but we didn't, and we just wrote it back and forth.
What are the advantages of writing your own book with no one else like waiting for an email?
Right.
Or is it hard to like stay inspired?
Well, I think my collaborators would say that they're usually the ones waiting for me. No, I mean, there are some stories that are entirely yours. I mean, that a book like Two Boys Kissing, I could never have written that with somebody else. It was so much coming from my mind, my heart, whatever part of me it was coming from. It just was something that I was creating and that I did not want anybody else's input. But something like Will Grayson or Nick and Nora is entirely shareable. The point of the book is almost about the sharing or the connection. Like Will Grayson was slightly different than the others because the Will Graysons don't meet until halfway into the book. So John and I actually wrote our first few chapters at the same time. So he wrote his chapter 1, I wrote my chapter 1, and then we read them aloud to each other. And that's how that worked. And that was a really neat way of doing it because we didn't have each other's chapters to refer to, but we sort of knew what was going on in the other Will's life until they collided.
As someone who's been writing like for so long, how do you stay inspired and like, you know, get stuff done? Like traveling all the time, can you write on airplanes, or do you have to be like in a dark room with violin music?
No, I mean, I like writing on airplanes and trains. I'm always very conscious of the businessman sitting next to me or businesswoman sitting next to me looking over my shoulder and what they must be thinking. But mostly I've found that my ideal writing space is actually somebody else's living room or kitchen table because there's not the distraction. I can't really write well in coffee shops because I'm always looking around and listening
people,
and watching people. In my own apartment, I will totally just be like, oh, I've just written 2 sentences, it's time for a snack. Or, oh, it's 3 sentences, oh, maybe I'll check my email. It's too much my own space, so I need that distance.
Do you have a project that you're most proud of? Or any part of your career?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of Boy Meets Boy, my first book. I mean, partially because it's the first book, so you're always very proud of that. But also, I think, because sort of individually, a number of other YA authors and I, at the same time, were inspired to sort of change the plot of LGBT YA and to be like, all right, enough of the misery, enough of the bleakness, let us just actually write realistic, happy and or sad novels about gay teens. Again, me, Julianne Peters, Alex Sanchez, Brett Hartinger, Johnson, Lauren Myerkel, sort of all within a year published novels that really changed the face of that particular character and the particular way that the character was portrayed. So I'm really proud of that. Like, and again, it's not a singular accomplishment, but I love the fact that Boy Meets Boy was a part of that.
You know, getting past that level 1 and getting published. How do you react to meeting fans and seeing how those books and your writing has impacted people?
I mean, it's strange and wonderful. I mean, it is very weird to me still, even 12 years later, that like something that I write at somebody else's kitchen table or wherever it may be, eventually somebody else reads it and can internalize it or can take some inspiration from it. That's amazing. I mean, it makes sense because I do that all the time with other writers' books and other writer words, but I'm used to being on that side of the equation, not the other. So it's neat. I mean, I think I'm always conscious that you have to separate the author from the actual book. It's always funny meeting somebody who's talking to me and I can tell, like, oh, they actually have mistaken me for my books. Like, that they think that I am this character this way, which is fine, and I think a lot of me is in the book, so I don't think it's so far off. Like, I'm not like some straight 80-year-old woman who has never been to New York City and writing these novels. I mean, there is a lot of me in there, but it is always funny that I have to sort of be like, well, you do realize that character that you really love is not actually the author. But usually they get it after a while. And
as an editor, I'm sure that enhances the way that you write. Like, you have an editor's voice in the back of your head. But you're not your own editor.
No. Oh, God. That would be bad. That's like asking a doctor, do you perform surgery on yourself? That would be akin to editing yourself. It's like, oh, damn. Like, that would be if I trusted myself to edit, which I don't. I mean, my editor voice is very much, I have worked with the same editor for most of my books, Nancy Hinkle, and it's really her voice that I think of as the editor voice in my head. It's not my own. I think certainly the fact that I work with words during the day and other people's words, it just exposes me to so many different ways of writing and different ways of seeing a story that naturally that will make me a better writer. But it doesn't make me particularly neater in my first draft, which people assume, oh, you're an editor, that means that like everything must be right in the right place in your first draft. And no, it just makes me just as messy as everybody else, but I understand the language of how to improve it better.
I know this is sort of different for every author. How much influence do you have in your covers? How does that work for you?
I am very, very, very lucky because I do get to see the covers and do get to comment, and by and large usually get to direct. I mean, and again, because my day job is looking at other people's covers all the time, so I do certainly have an expertise that your average author does not have. That said, again, the majority of my books have been at Random House. All of them at Random House have been overseen by the same art director. I trust her extraordinarily. I've been very lucky in that most of the time, pretty much out of the gate, they'll get it right.
So doing book signings and readings, I'm sure you have a wide variety of readers, the librarians and then like teenagers like me. Who is most prevalent, and what do you think is like the most awkward scene you've read from a book at a signing?
I prefer to do readings with other authors. Like, it is so much more fun when you're not the only person on the stage or at the front of the room. Like, you both draw in other people's fans, but also just the dynamic of sharing it, you feel much less of a burden. So I will always, always prefer to do it with other writers. again, sometimes the hitch is that some of the other writers might have younger fans, or different fans. The reading you were at, I started to read my story from 21 Proms, which is a little risque. It does not actually go as far as people feared it would go. But then, unfortunately, looked up and realized, oh, I'm reading with Allie Carter, and she has some 11-year-old fans in the audience, and this is, in fact, not appropriate for them. The funniest one, which is totally cool now, but was very funny at the time, was when Rachel and I were touring for Nick and Nora, a book that uses the F-bomb a lot. Mostly my chapters, but some of Rachel's chapters. I mean, we were very conscious of that, and we said, okay, this is a teen reading. There should only be teens there. And at one San Francisco reading, there was, in the front row, probably an 8-year-old. And I was like, no, we just can't. Like, it just, why would you bring an 8-year-old? And so we said to the bookseller, we're like, hey, like, if we want to actually do what we're doing, it was late in the tour, we knew how it went, we knew how the Q&A went, everything. We're like, you know what, could you actually ask the mom of that 8-year-old if just tell them it's not appropriate and just warn them so we could, because you don't want to be cursing and look up and see an 8-year-old just sort of looking at you. And she did, and the mother left with the 8-year-old. The punchline to the joke is that, I will not name names, but it was a Newbery honor-winning author whose child we had ejected, and she had come to see us, and later I met her. I did not know that at the time. I was at a convention, and I was like, oh, have we met before? And she's like, we didn't meet because you had me kicked out of your reading. And I was like, what? And then I was like, oh. So that was potentially the most awkward, yeah. If you're gonna bring your young kid, at least keep them out of the eye line of the cursing authors.
Yeah. Non-writing, non-author questions.
Okay.
Top 5 favorite musicals.
Oh my god. We're gonna do like
Can we
first
top
thought.
3?
We're gonna do first thought, best thought, and I'm sure that I will miss them, but I would go Into the Woods, Passing Strange, Title of Show. Sentimental favorite. I was gonna say Sunday in the Park with George, but then Once came into my head, and I love Once so much, so I'm gonna go with Once.
So we're gonna do a small giveaway. We have the new cover of Will Grayson, written by John Green and David Levithan from the Strand in NYC. Tell us about the new cover.
Well, I will sign it, and the signature will match the bottom half of the drawings because I have doodled on the cover of my own book, which is really kind of exciting. They said they were going to hire a doodle artist. I didn't really. If I'd known that was actually an occupation, like I might not even be in publishing, I would have been like, I'm going to college to become a doodle artist, thank you. So the doodle artist did the top half for John's will, but I did my Will's drawings.
Signing it live, just so we all know it's not a stamp.
This actually happened.
This is happening?
It has been signed.
It happened. Well, thank you so much for coming on my channel. I have been reading your books for like a few years now.
It's true. We go way back.
Yeah, thanks for coming on the channel.
My pleasure.
I will see you guys very soon.
We will.
And, alright.
So long.